Are you looking for ways to keep yourself more organized and navigate your surroundings when out with your camera? In this Shutter Nonsense episode, join us as we break down our favorite apps for photographers. From pre-planning to campsite discovery and everything in between, we share our insights on the apps that make our lives easier. Ready to streamline your adventures? Tune in now, and then join us over on Patreon as a free or paid member to hop into the discussion about this episode. Let's get to it. All right, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Shutter Nonsense. We're up to, what is this, episode 12? I feel like I can never remember what episode number we're actually recording. I'm in the midst of editing episode 8, so why wouldn't it be recording episode 12? So this one's going to be all about the apps that Jeffrey and I like to use when we're in the field, and actually not even just in the field, but apps that we might be using or going online to different sites for our pre-trip planning timeline. So I'd say let's kind of just jump into it, but Jeffrey, what is my problem? I'm not drunk today, I swear.
We started recording a little early today. It's thrown you completely off your game. We did not follow the scheduled time, and it's rattled Michael.
Anyways, let me try this again. Before we get into it, though, I do want to give shout-outs to our latest Patreon members. We've had a little bit of an uptick in the last week or so, which is great to see. I feel like the last week especially, there's been a lot of energy. We've got some really great conversations over on Patreon and feedback through social media and everything. And this first person, I gave a shout out to the end of, or to them at the end of episode 11, but it was all the way at the end. So in case people didn't listen, a huge shout out to Ben Horn for becoming a $5 member of our Shutter Nonsense Patreon, and to Matt Payne as well. He recently signed up. And then hot off the presses, literally 15 minutes before we jumped in the room here, Greg Vaughn, who has been a huge supporter of me, and I believe Jeffrey as well, signed up for a $5 a month pledge also. So thank you to the three of you. Definitely appreciate it.
Yep.
I think
thank you.
To my conflicted sense of mind and sense of self, I believe we have now officially passed my photography Patreon count for paid members. So
it just shows what collaboration can do, right?
Like collaboration and putting something out weekly that clearly takes some effort. So anyway, no, I'm thrilled that people are enjoying it and feeling the need or the want to reward us and help support the podcast. To that end, we're like a quarter or a third of the way to covering our expenses if you annualize the pledges we've got. So it's definitely appreciated. And if anybody else is thinking about it, we have spreadsheets. Jeffrey likes to tease me about my spreadsheets. A P&L spreadsheet is not a bad thing, Jeffrey.
It is not a bad thing. It's just I wonder how many photography podcasts have a P&L spreadsheet.
I don't know. I mean, why not, right? Especially we're sharing expenses on this.
Yep.
So.
It 100% makes sense. I just find it amusing. I just like to give you a hard time. Makes it super easy to be organized. But
I like a good spreadsheet. All right. So, anyways, enough of making fun of me. We move on from that. So, we wanted to talk about, like I said, the apps that we use. And we're kind of break this into, segments. You would say, talking about the planning phase before we're out in the field. Then when we're there, kind of navigation, trail tracking, safety, camping. There's some resources that I use specifically when I'm out in those BLM or national forest areas to help me find campgrounds that are open and accessible for boondocking or dispersed camping. And then there's kind of just like odds and ends extras, and then we'll get into personal favorites and stuff like that. So we'll see how well we actually adhere to the segments, but that's the loose plan. So let's just get into it. So the planning phase before we actually head out and hit the trails or hit the road, I know for me personally, and it's something I don't even do a whole lot of, is I do from time to time jump into Google Earth and take a little bit of closer look at some of the areas I'm going to be going into, especially if, like for me, I'll use Utah as an example. I've been there several times now. That's southern Utah, Grand Staircase, Escalante area. And, every trip I take, I always spend time scouting as well. So if something piques my interest, maybe I don't have time to go explore it more in depth, or I'm kind of curious, like, what's around the bend in that canyon or whatever. Before I head back the next time, I might look at the pens I have on my phone and jump into Google Earth and kind of get a feel for where things stand out. Probably more than that. Well, actually, before I keep rattling on, Jeffrey, are you a Google Earth proponent, or is there something else you use?
I do use Google Earth, very similar to you. I know some people leverage it a lot and really can maximize it, and they'll even pull their routes into it with pens and the whole bit. I would call myself a casual Google Earth user. It sounds very similar to you, where I'm like either want to refresh my mind or like I've maybe read or researched an overlook or a particular area where I'm going to go, and I just want like a rough idea of what I'm getting into. Not super in-depth planning, but yeah, Google Earth is on my list of one that I'll use to sort of pre-scout, and sort of on my list to learn to use more effectively, because I think the folks that use it well are probably get some great advantage out of it. But yeah, Google Earth's on my list as well.
Yeah, maybe I know Matt's friend, and he's an amazing photographer in his own right, just released a huge Australia gallery. Kane Engelbert, I believe his last name is. I know he is a huge Google Earth wizard. Maybe we could look at, I don't know him all that well other than making fun of Matt online and him enjoying my commentary, but maybe we could get him on at some point in the future to do a deep dive on how he uses Google Earth. But I use it here and there. I do like the topography aspect of it. Like you said, you can kind of get a feel for what the view might be like from a viewpoint. Obviously, Google also, if it's a more popular overlook point, it's quite likely you're going to be able to go in and look at, if not a street side view, at the very least, at the very minimum, cell phone snaps that Google users have uploaded to Google Maps or Google Earth or what have you. Also, oftentimes Google Earth will also have their own little kind of short bios on a location or whatever. So I do find that useful. It's probably something I should use more often, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I don't use it consistently. The other one I've been using more of as I've gotten more into it is OnX, OnX, specifically OnX Offroad. And then I recently signed up for OnX Backcountry as well, which is their trail application or app. For OnX Offroad specifically, it's nice. You've got the topography layouts. You can do a 3D view. You can do all that, not just on the mobile app, but also go to their website and have a bigger view of it on your laptop screen or your monitor or what have you. But I do use that quite a bit. And the nice thing with that is it shows you all of you can even look at like who owns specific plots of land. Yep. You can see if it's BLM, National Forest, if it's private and you can't access it, so on and so forth. So that's nice too if there's a location I kind of have in mind to get a feel for, hey, I spotted this in the past or I've heard about this. Can I get there, quote unquote, legally? I certainly don't want to trespass on private property or anything like that. And also, again, being car campers like you and I are, I want that ability to find ahead of time where I might be at a car camp. And OnX Offroad just added a layer in that shows you where you can do dispersed camping and boondocking and that too, nice. Which is really handy on the Colorado trip I just got back from. So that's a really nice new feature too.
Very cool. Yeah, you're making a good pitch for OnX. I haven't used OnX. I know you were using in the Smokies, I believe, was what you were using, and I was using Gaia. And Gaia has lots of layers, too. I would have to see if they have a dispersed layer, but it's got several. The private land one, I think, is a great one, especially here in the East. There's a lot of private land, and even in my local stomping grounds, Hocking Hills, there used to be a way to get to some waterfalls that was public land, but it's since been bought by private, and Gaia makes it real easy to see that those old trail directions are technically trespassing if you use them, because it's now shows as a layer private land.
If I even bothered trying to look at that in Texas, it would just be all blocked off because we've got like 5% public land or something ridiculous in this giant state. And speaking of Gaia, I used to use Gaia. I know a lot of people swear by Gaia. I dropped it. For whatever reason, it seemed like I was an outlier, but I got a renewal notification that the price was going up to like something ridiculous, like $60 or $80 for the annual renewal. I think it's 60 for an annual, I think is what it is currently, I think. Yeah. So I already wasn't a huge fan of it. I always felt it was a little clunky. And again, I know people swear by it. Matt's a huge proponent. Matt Payne's a huge proponent of it. Sarah Marino's used it, although I think she's gotten a little frustrated with it lately. I think they just redesigned the app or something. They put social commentary into it, which I hadn't even noticed because I never clicked into it. But there's now, it was when it came up in the Discord, I'm like, what? And I opened the app, and it's just under the home button, which I apparently, I guess, never hit. I'm usually underneath maps or trips. But there's a home button, and sure enough, when you clicked into it, it was a social media feed of people doing stuff. And then what made it worse was the default setting must have switched, because I know I had mine set to don't show my tracks and routes, because sometimes I am in a spot where I don't want to be, I'm on public land, but it's an area that doesn't have the infrastructure to support. Right. Or it's more sensitive or whatever. Yeah.
And it had switched back to, make all your tracks, and at a certain date you could see where it switched. So I had to go back through and make private. So yeah, there's Gaia is far from flaws. It's more like I'm used to using it, and I just haven't tackled. Do I want to figure out how to migrate my waypoints, my pins to a different app or something? But
right.
It definitely has its cons.
We've gotten a little off track here. We're supposed to be talking about pre-planning. As I said, we'll see how we actually stick with these segments, and we're already off course a little bit. So jumping back to the pre-planning. It's total nonsense. One might call it shutter nonsense.
Exactly.
Anyway, so we've talked about Google Earth. I also use just Google Maps, depending on where exactly I'm looking at. Like I said, you can get Street View and all that stuff. So I'll do a little bit of a mix with the Google mapping and Earth options. Photopills I do use, although, again, not nearly as much as I used to. Certainly when I was into the night photography, I was using photopills all the time. It can still be useful for tracking your sunrise and sunset times, but also, like most weather apps, you can open them up if you've got a signal and find that information real easily. Mm-hmm. The main thing I'll look at it now is if I'm in a new location and trying to determine where the sun is going to be tracking from, again, sunrise or sunset. And actually, I did use it in Colorado this last trip. That's probably the first time. I can't remember if I used it in Smokies or not. I don't use it real often anymore. And again, part of it is just my change in approach to photography in terms of like, I'm just going to go and see what I'm presented with. But sometimes it is nice to know where the sun is going to be at a particular time. And again, that's maybe not so much pre-planning for me. It's more when I'm in the field. I don't know, do you use it for anything pre-planning?
Not as much as I should. Every once in a while, I will just see, like if I'm planning a fall trip to West Virginia or something, and I know, like I go to a spot called Lindy Point, which is, people have heard me talk about it. I've tried to get my perfect picture there like 12 times now, but I've used it photo pills to see, okay, where's the sun going to be at this time of year type thing. So I have used it there. I do use
I've done that too.
The augmented reality, and I actually don't use photo pills for it. I use an app called... I moved it. I tried to get organized and put them all in a new
We'll have
folder.
to link to these apps too.
Yes,
in some
that's a good
way, shape,
note
or form in the show notes.
So I am using. Oh my gosh, now I can't find the app. I use an app. I'll put it in the show notes. I tried to organize my apps, and now they're at different places. But it's got the augmented reality.
You did a great job of organizing.
I know, right? Like normally it was like right underneath my button to click. Way to get prepared for the show. But I'll use it, like I used it at Morton in the Smokies because I think maybe the first time you and I went by, it was early in the day, like it wasn't going to be close to sunset. So I was trying to figure out, okay, where is the sun going to go down? Because we're trying to keep where's going to be the good sunset spots. And it had the augmented reality where you just move the phone and it shows the sun come down. Yeah. I think PhotoPills has that augmented reality.
Yeah, it does. And that's probably what I use more than anything. Yeah, they do have the planner view where it's kind of that top down and it shows kind of that 360-degree wedge of where sunlight and sunrise and sunset's going to be in the moon path and everything. But probably more than anything, I use the augmented reality view in PhotoPills these days. Like I said, when I was doing the night photography, I was using PhotoPills all the time and figuring out, okay, when's blue hour, when's twilight, when's what do they call it, nautical twilight, and then full night, and where the core is going to be. It's great from that standpoint if you're wanting to pre-scout a location before you're on site, or if you're nearby and you want to plan it for the next day or that night, to know where exactly the Milky Way core is going to be rising and setting. Really great for that. And there's other tools that do that, but PhotoPills is probably considered the gold standard still, I would assume. I can't
Joshua
think of any
Cripps
others
does some really great videos and how-tos on the PhotoPills, and like the folks that did the learning landscape photography, their first release, Joshua did his video was on like planning the moon and where it's going to be, and he got into trigonometry and using PhotoPills to do it, and like it was some crazy advanced usage of like, wow, that is, I didn't even know you could do that. And then it made me regret not passing trig back in the days, because I'm like I think Josh Cripps is probably kind of down that path as well, which, like, I do photography not to do math, but I know some people are really into that, and man, Josh is obviously he's so good at it.
Created some absolutely incredible eclipse photos, and he's got the moon over Mount Whitney and the whole bit. So I think on his workshops, he spends time teaching PhotoPills. So if you go to Josh's YouTube channel, is no longer Joshua Cripps Photography. It is Nature Photography Collective. But you can still find his older videos on there. And I believe he's got, I think it's been a while, but I think he does have a video on there, at least about the basics of PhotoPills. And at the very least, I think he's got one on there about can't remember where he did the shoot, but it was the solar eclipse with the camel on the sand dune and kind of what all went into that. Really, really impressive, and really shows the power of what you can pull off with photo pills.
SunQuest is the app I'm using
SunQuest.
for the AR.
It's
because it's super simple. I don't have to dig through the photo pills menus. It's literally only thing it does in life is sunrise, sunset stuff.
Interesting.
So
good to know. I haven't heard of that one. So yeah, I'm trying to think from a pre-planning. Now that I've got the OnX backcountry, I am using that to look at trails around locations I know I'm going to be in. And the nice thing, and I used to use All Trails, and actually I think I've got the lifetime membership to All Trails. There's no real reason I haven't been using All Trails other than and this is a note we've got on our kind of prep sheet here, but I would love to get things condensed down as much as possible so that I can use fewer apps to accomplish what I need and I want. I was hoping that OnX Backcountry and OnX Offroad would automatically kind of talk to each other and sync like pins and stuff. Unless I'm missing something, I don't think it does. You can you can export
apps?
from one and import to the other. Yeah, it's two separate apps.
Okay. I thought maybe it was like a layer or like an extra.
No. OnX has multiple apps. You've got OnX Backcountry, OnX Offroad, OnX Hunting. I will say, shameless plug, if you want to help support me, I am an OnX ambassador / affiliate. So if you go to my website, you can find the link for that. We can drop in the show notes. They're always running promotions. Like there's some ambassadors that have discount codes. I'm not big enough to have a discount code, but honestly, if you wait for like a holiday, you're probably going to find a better discount deal through them anyways. So if you want to sign up, you get a 7-day trial. And if you end up signing up, then I'll get a little bit of a small commission on it. So that'd always be appreciated. But as I always say, and whether people believe me or not, I don't become an ambassador or an affiliate for a brand or a company that I don't personally use and support. So having used OnX for a couple of years on different trials, and for a while I would sign up just for the duration of a trip and then cancel it and stuff like that. Now I'm just keeping it all the time because I can do all my pre-planning, looking at OnX Offroad specifically. I can look at Colorado, look at Utah, and okay, I know I'm going to be in this general vicinity, and you can filter the off-road trails by their level of difficulty. So I can say, I'm really only comfortable doing like up to a 4 rating, especially when I'm by myself. So you can filter the map so it's only going to show you those specific trails, and you're not going to be looking at anything where if you're not paying attention, you're getting yourself in trouble real quick with some crazy like Jeep Rubicon type trail or something like that. And you can do the same thing with the OnX Backcountry for the hiking trails. So I was using it for that both ahead of Colorado and in Colorado. Like I said, I didn't do a lot of hiking on that trip, but again, you can filter it so you can choose your trail difficulty. I think it even gets as granular as how much elevation gain and loss there is in the trail and everything. So it's not, if I remember correctly, and I should probably just open it. Where's my phone? I'll try to do this while I'm talking, but you can filter it down to say how much elevation you want, obviously the total length, whether it's out and back or loop trail. There's a fair bit of granularity there. And then, of course, you can add pins to trailheads and everything. So if you find trails ahead of time that you want to check out, you can just pin them and then get to them pretty easily. So anyways, I'm not going to waste time trying to figure out how to use the app or refresh my memory on that while we're midst of recording here. But I haven't used the OnX Backcountry a lot. I have been really happy with it so far. The 3D topography is really, really good. I feel like the user interface is a little cleaner and clearer than what my experience was with Gaia in the past. Granted, it's been a few years. Circling back, I know I'm kind of jumping all over, but All Trails, I was fine with it. Again, I just wanted to try to condense down into a single ecosystem if I could, and being as happy as I was with OnX Offroad, I figured I'd go ahead and sign up for the backcountry. And like I said, I've been happy with it so far, but I can't really say like it's way better than All Trails or way worse or anything like that. The one thing I will say is All Trails, if it matters to you, they do have an Apple Watch app. So you can start and stop your tracks on the watch. With OnX Backcountry, they don't have a watch app, so you've got to do it through the phone. Pretty minor thing, in my opinion, because I'm already probably using the phone to pre-scout the trail anyways. What do you use for your hiking? Anything, or you just kind of go out and wander?
If I'm in an unfamiliar area, I use the Gaia GPS to start a track, especially like going into dunes or really anywhere that I'm unfamiliar with. Even when I'm out in Arizona or something, even if it's like this is a big mainstream trail, I'll start a track, which is handy because it just sort of most handy on the way back, or in the case of dunes, a lot of times in Death Valley, I'll park at a semi-unusual area, and you're pretty far away from where you parked. And if you got twisted and turned in the dunes, or it got dark, you could suddenly be like, where did I park? And then out there, if you're off 10-degree angle, you suddenly have a huge walk potentially ahead of you. So I use that in the field, and that's where I keep all my pens and stuff. If I'm pre-researching a trail, it's predominantly on the web, more so than app. I'm still old school.
That's fair. Yeah.
I tend to pre-planning be more on the computer and a little less on the phone. But yeah.
But I assume, well, I know like Gaia, OnX, any of those, if you do your pre-planning on like the website, it'll save any pens you add or anything like that, and it'll sync up with the app. So it's not like you're having to do it in both locations or something.
Yeah. So what I like is I can pull it up on the web, Gaia, and then I can drop pins or see where I was at, or make additional notes or more organization on the computer as I want.
So I think we can kind of pivot a little bit here to the navigation. We've already been talking about that to an extent, tracking and safety. So from a navigation GPS standpoint, again, we've touched on, I'm using OnX Offroad for my off-road navigation. It's compatible with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, so you can have it on the screen. The nice thing with it that I figured out in Colorado, though, is unlike Google Maps or Apple Maps, you can actually have the navigation on your phone screen still, even though it's running on CarPlay or Android Auto, whereas with the Google and Apple ones, if you've got it running on the car screen, then you're only getting like a list of turn-by-turn directions on the phone. So that's really nice because just like any app, the car version is pared down a fair bit. So if you're, I've got a magnetic mount that I just recently got actually that clips onto my my air vent in the 4Runner. And I can even throw that in links. That's been great. It's got a little like hook on it, so it hooks to the back of the vent.
Yeah, it's got what brand? What did you get? I was curious.
And then you can screw it down, so a lot of those vent clips just fall off, especially for on bumpy roads. I think it was Anchor. I'll try to remember. I'll make a note here to throw that in. It's been really nice because it does have that screw down mount.
Yep. Mine is still always either in the center console on a magnetic charger, so I can't even see the phone, or it's sitting in a cup holder.
So that's the nice thing. This is a MagSafe charger too. So
awesome.
I just got it plugged into the 12-volt plug within my center console, and it runs up and powers it. So, and it's in front of the vent, so my phone gets hot when it wirelessly charges, and it keeps it nice and chill.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So anyways, back on topic, the nice thing is I can have OnX running on my phone screen if I want. I can also have it on Apple CarPlay, but typically what I'll do is I'll have it on the phone screen. Any pens I've added will show up on the map as you're navigating. They recently, within the last 6 months, I want to say, they added full navigation. Before, it was kind of like they would give you, if I remember correctly, they would give you the route line, but not actually turn-by-turn navigation. So now I was even using OnX for just general navigation around Colorado, since I had all the maps downloaded ahead of time. So even if I was in town, I'd be like, okay, want to go to this trailhead or this off-road area or this basin and an alpine lake, and I would just use OnX to get from town all the way out there, which is really nice. So then if I wanted to, I could also have Google Maps running on the car screen while I've got OnX on the phone screen. Or I can just have music or whatever, not have to worry about it being on the screen. So that was nice. And I mentioned you can see your pens. So if you are heading to a location and there's campsites that you've pinned, those will show up while you're navigating. There's a campsite right here. Let me see if it's available. Let me check it out. Let me claim it, whatever. The bigger thing that I really found it useful for is you can pin all kinds of different types of things. So I'll pin photo locations, waterfalls, great views, campsites, you name it, I can basically pin it. And going up to an area that my friend John and I were going to a couple times to camp and to photograph in Colorado, there's this horrible dip. It's not even a dip. It's just like a trench across the road. it was there last year, and I absolutely nailed it at like 35 miles per hour because there's no signs, there's no warning or anything. It doesn't show up real well. So I pinned it this year after I hit it the first time. So I've got a big red pin and the text dip. So I'll see that come up on the map as I'm navigating and know to hit the brakes.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's been really, really handy for that. So I'm using basically OnX for all my navigation when I'm out in the field now. Obviously, when I'm like leaving Texas and going to Colorado, I typically use Apple Maps or Google Maps. But when I'm actually on site, I'm switching over to the OnX. So that's really well. And then we talked about tracking. You mentioned you can do the tracking via Gaia. I can track my routes with all trails. OnX Backcountry for the hiking trails. You can track your routes. You can leave breadcrumbs through OnX Offroad, which is nice. I've got all kinds of ways I can track. If I'm in the truck, I can even track like the Forerunner map. You have a breadcrumb mode where it'll drop breadcrumbs on its map, although it usually doesn't include many off-road trails or anything like that. So I can do it in OnX. You can do it through the Garmin, which usually I don't use the Garmin for breadcrumbs when I'm driving because it's 10-minute intervals. So you just get these weird, like really jagged lines. So yeah, you've got plenty of options for leaving breadcrumbs. And to your point, Jeffrey, definitely if you're like in an area where you're in dunes, or even if you're like the Smokies, there were some trails we went on where you've got different forks and branches. And if you're not familiar with the area and you get a little disoriented when you're trying to head back or whatever, you could end up taking the wrong turn and getting twisted around and end up hiking further away from your car, what have you. Certainly if you're in an environment where you're going over country and not actually following an established trail, breadcrumbs are huge. So whatever you're using, I would definitely recommend you've got some way, shape, or form to use breadcrumbs or to leave breadcrumbs, which is just tracking your trail. The one thing I would point out is where it doesn't work well with tracking. I ran into this in Utah when I explored a side canyon. Was it in fall of 2023? It was a narrower canyon, not like a slot canyon, but just narrower. And I was tracking it with my Apple Watch because, of course, that also can do trail tracking now. And I believe at the time I was using all trails, and then I had my GPS, my Garmin, set to track. And all three of them got totally messed up because of the canyon walls. They weren't able to get the satellite signals and GPS signals. So you do have to be cautious of that. So, like in my case, it was a canyon. It was out and back. There were no there were no offshoot side canyons or anything like that I could have taken. But it is something you want to be aware of. And if you are getting into a situation where you're branching off, probably worth checking in from time to time to make sure your tracking is still accurate. Because if I had been relying on that, I mean, it had me like at one point it darted me like a mile away and then back into the canyon and everything. And it's no fault of the apps. It's just the limitation of GPS satellites and being in a narrow confines, just like being in a city full of high-rise skyscrapers. Right. Sometimes the navigation can be tricky. So something to watch out there. I'm assuming you use just Gaia for your tracking.
Yeah, I just use Gaia for any hiking. For me, the division point is I'm pretty much Google Maps, anything that's on a road. And then as soon as I park and start a trail, that's my mental shift of, okay, I'm going into Gaia to either just, if it's a place I know, sometimes to check the terrain or start to track. Those are pretty much the big, partially due to your point earlier.
Check the terrain. I thought you said check the train. I was like,
what
yeah,
train
check the train.
Yes, yeah, terrain. It's my Southern Ohio accent. But yeah, those are the two big apps. Partially because, like you said, I resist the urge of all trails because it's just another app. So I try to keep it to those two, and that's my mental shift. If I'm on the road, I download the Google Map offline for the regions I'm in. And then once I get to a trailhead, that's my mental shift to, okay, I can close out of Google Maps, shift over to Gaia. Now, I will use Gaia on like forest roads, but usually not so much for navigation as much as I'll sometimes have pins set for interesting locations like you were mentioning earlier. And so that's what I'll pull up on CarPlay. There's a spot in West Virginia that I tend to go to that's sort of hidden off the trail, just off the forest road, but it's tucked back in the trees. So I have a pin that way when I'm driving and I'm tired, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to stop here and do this. So,
yeah, and actually to that point, like sometimes the thing you want to get to isn't necessarily right by the road. So, again, going back to Colorado, I've got some pins where I've pinned where to park for the place, and then I've got a separate pin for the actual location, whether there's a trail there or not. So I know, okay, I need to park here, but the thing I want is actually over that way a mile or what have you. So,
Yep.
If you kind of think through it, you can really tailor your pens and these apps to really help you out when you're out in the field. And again, going back to the planning phase, if you find things before you leave, through the computer or whatever app you want to use, pen those things ahead of time, and you've got them all ready to go when you're there. And then you mentioned offline access. That's a huge one, is remembering to download your maps, so you've got offline access. And that's one thing I would say with OnX. You can do offline maps. It's a little weird though, because when you go into the offline mode, you get 3 different like detail levels. So basically it's like low, medium, and high. And the more detail you get, the smaller section you can download at any one download. So if I want to do like high detail, you've almost got like a mosaic grid of the area, which is a little annoying. I don't know why they don't let you just do bigger areas. It's storage. So I don't see what the
with Gaia, I
problem
think
would
it
be.
just warns you. You can do your big, huge rectangle, and it just says this is going to take up approximately X amount of space, and you can decide whether 3 gigs of space is worth it to you or not. But so
that would be probably my biggest complaint with OnX, is that limit. It's not a hard stop limitation, because again, you just download like multiple segments for the offline map, make sure they overlap.
Right.
But it's still annoying during that preparation phase. Now, I will say I typically use the lowest detail version for the sake of just simplicity when I am downloading the offline maps ahead of time. And even the low detail, you've got plenty of detail.
Gotcha.
So unless you're really trying to think of what the major differences are that would be lacking as you go from high detail to low. Like, I haven't found it to be a problem using low detail.
Gotcha.
Everything I would need to see is there. I think maybe when you're offline, you may not get like the 3D navigation view with like buildings and stuff like that.
And that sort of makes sense. I'd probably consume a lot of...
Right, yeah. And I don't really need that when I'm going off-road or anything anyways. Also, speaking of offline view, another app that I use, and this is when I'm in the field, is called Peak Finder. Because again, I don't live in these areas. I'm not familiar with a lot of the mountain peaks in the distance or around me or whatever. So Peak Finder is really nice. It's basically a AR, augmented reality view, again, where you can hold your phone up, and based on GPS and the orientation, it'll tell you, oh, that this peak out there is so-and-so, and then these over here or whatever, and you can get the elevations and that. The downside to it is it doesn't automatically just download all the data, which is really annoying. So if I'm offline and I've forgotten to download it, I can't look up any of the peaks that I'm maybe photographing that are around me. But it's a nice, simple app in terms of being able to identify your peaks. However, I found that I think OnX Offroad has it, but definitely OnX Backcountry. You've got a 3D view you can use. Like I said, it's really nice. It shows the topography really well. And as you lower the view down, so it's more looking like out across the landscape, it'll label the peaks for you as well.
Oh, cool.
So Peak Finder's probably a little less of a necessary tool. And since I have my OnX stuff downloaded for offline use, it has all the peaks and everything in there too, even at the low detail. So that was nice to see. I'm trying to think, anything else you use from a navigation standpoint?
Not really. I'm big on the Google Maps and the Gaia GPS. I mean, I have the Garmin Explorer. Is that what they call the app these days?
Well, they've got 2. You've got the Garmin EarthMate, and then I just got the InReach Mini 2, which works with their new Messenger app. And I guess that's worth talking to. So the Garmin satellite devices with SOS, we talked about in our gear episode.
Yep.
So if you use... It's a little frustrating because you've got this new Messenger app from Garmin, which is great for messaging, and with compatible devices, you can even send photos, which is kind of nice. You can pull weather. You can pull in your contacts from your phone. But it's very limited. It's basically weather and messaging. So I linked my new Mini 2 up to that, but then I went into EarthMate, which is where you can get the full mapping and see your waypoints and everything, as well as messaging. It's got a compass mode, but it appears you can't have your device linked to both apps. So like I linked it up with Messenger, and I wasn't able to use EarthMate. Like you can use the compass because it's just based on the magnetism.
Right.
But I wasn't able to pull up like my live tracking or anything like that of my waypoints. So that I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more with Garmin. I don't know why they would force you one or the other. So maybe I'm doing something wrong. But in the field, I want to say I went into EarthMate and tried to link it up, and it was indicating that it would disconnect me from the other one. So I just left it because I didn't really need it. But so EarthMate for Garmin is like the full-blown app, I guess you would say. And then Messenger's just obviously more intended for messaging.
I thought they moved that to Garmin Explore in newer versions, because that's what I have on my phone, and it has the map capability in it. Yeah, and Garmin Explore has the map capability, and it has messages in it, though I am wondering if it can do pictures. Right. I don't know if I can attach pictures. So now you're making me wonder if there's an even newer app for messaging that I should be looking at.
Look at that, Garmin Explore.
Yeah, that's what I have connected to my inReach Mini. Is that, and that does have map, which I almost never use just because I'm usually using Gaia.
Yeah, I don't use it a whole lot, but it's nice to have. It is tracking points.
Yep.
So.
I mean, and the inReach is super accurate. So, but
and actually, and again, I think we mentioned it in the prior episode, but the nice thing with the Garmin is you get a MapShare link as well. So
yes,
every time before I leave town or go on a hike or whatever, I make sure that at least Heather has got my map link.
Yep.
So that even if I'm not able to send an SOS message or something, if I just kind of go off grid and disappear, my Garmin's updating that map with my 10-minute waypoint tracking.
Yep.
So if something awful happened, they would at least know within 10 minutes,
yep.
or where I was at least
within
10 minutes prior. So
they'll at least find your camera bag.
Yeah. Won't leave that laying around by campsites anymore. That's a Patreon insider joke based on our first bonus episode we just recorded. So let's see here. Anything else? You don't really do proper backpacking, do you, versus day hiking?
I don't, not anymore. I mean, no, it's all day hikes. I mean, like you, the overlanding camp in remote areas type stuff. But as far as a full-on backpack on my feet with a tent, no, I don't do that anymore. That's what I got the Forerunner for. I can carry that.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think, looking at somebody like Matt Payne who does backpacking and that, again, he's still just using the Gaia. So I don't really think from an app standpoint you're really going to need anything differently, whether you're doing day hikes or full on backpacking trips.
Yeah.
I will say, and I meant to throw this out at the beginning, of course, everybody's got knowledge of apps that somebody else doesn't. So if there's an app that you are using that is really helpful for backpacking or anything else we've talked about or that we will talk about here, again, join us over on the Patreon. Sign up for free. You can join the conversations at the very minimum and let us know what apps work well for you. We had a thing on here about battery life on the phone when you're tracking. I haven't really found it to be a problem.
I've had older phones where it's been a problem when my phone's been getting old, and then it's a concern. But usually I'll either kick it into airplane mode, which will help a little bit, or a low power mode at the very least. And then if I really think I'm going to be out all day or way far away from the vehicle, I have a smaller MagSafe power bank that magnetizes to the back of the phone. I'll toss that in because it's got like another 10,000 milliamps of power. But really... That's only been an issue when I had a phone that was getting pretty old.
I can't say I've had a problem with that in a while. Again, the Garmin, I will say, especially the inReach Mini 2 that I just got, the battery life is way better than my original inReach. Yeah. Whether that's because the battery's deteriorated on my older one or it's just more efficient hardware and everything, battery management. A huge difference in battery life in Colorado. So that was really nice. I also carry a battery brick in my bag, primarily to charge like my DJI Pocket or the microphones for it or whatever if I need to, but also it's there in case my phone does start running low. And to your point, especially if I know I'm going out further, I want to be better safe than sorry in that particular case. But generally speaking, I think if you've got a relatively newish phone, battery life on your device isn't really going to be too much of an issue, even if you are doing tracking.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But something to be aware of, especially, again, if you're going out for a longer period. Let's see. What is our next topic? Or have we even finished that topic? We talked about campsites, dispersed camping, public land access. So, I'd mentioned I use OnX. There's another app I've used in the past called iOverlander, which is really good for finding, again, free spots to camp, dispersed camping, boondocking, et cetera, et cetera. It's nice because it will have photos and user reviews as well. The downside that I have found to it is, and again, maybe it's ignorance on my part, but I haven't found a way to, like, you can't search as far as I can tell. You have to kind of be in the area or open it on the map and like pan all the way over from Texas to Colorado and then kind of zoom in on where you're going to be. I haven't found it really user-friendly in that regard, but once you get into it and actually, like, once you get past the clunkiness of finding stuff, once you find it, it is pretty useful. Again, you do have to remember to download for offline use, but I believe on that one, it actually downloads the whole country, which is nice. It's relatively basic info, but that one is really nice because, again, you can see photos. People will rate cell phone coverage levels for the various carriers, which OnX has to an extent too. It's got cellular coverage maps in OnX, which is nice. Another one I've used, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's just a website, is Campendium.
Yeah, they got an app too.
Do they? Okay, Campendium. I haven't used that one in a while. I've been using iOverlander and then OnX the last couple of years, but past experience, Campendium was pretty nice too. So I had that. Overlanding, route planning, fuel stops, we've kind of talked about all that. But yeah, I think most of your mapping apps these days are going to pull in at least gas stations. I think OnX even has that as a layer or a filter you can layer on. I will say one thing that came in handy in Colorado with OnX again was they've got a wildfire layer as well as a smoke layer. So speaking specifically to that one area I was in, I came around the bend and there's a huge plume of smoke. I was able to pull up. Fortunately, where I was, I had enough of it. I think I had like 1 bar of signal, so I was able to pull live data of where the wildfire actually was, how far away it was, and then when John and I would head into town, I would pull it back up and update smoke layer or the smoke layer on there so we could get a feel for where we wanted to go to hopefully try to avoid some of the smoke that was building in. I think John had a separate app for smoke tracking, or it might have been built into one of his weather apps that he was using. But yeah, again, OnX had that too, so it was quite nice.
I used an app called The Dirt sometimes as well. For
camping. That was the one. I was trying to remember the name of that. Yeah, I've used that too. Again, I haven't used it in a while, but DYRT,
not DI, but DYRT.
It's hip and cool.
Yep, hip and cool. I'll use it to look for camp spots if needed.
And that one's got a paid version as well.
They do. There's a pro version, which I don't have. I'm not on the paid. Here in the East, it's hard to find dispersed camping. It's just there is some in West Virginia, but it's sort of like I know where it's at, so I don't really need to use the app anymore. So it's handy to scout. I guess you could almost, for me, call it more of a pre-planning, just because it's so hard to find that type of camping in the East. It exists, but it's few and far in between.
Yeah, same here in Texas. I do seem to recall that Dirt and Compendium, though, they'll actually pull in, or you can filter it to pull in like campgrounds and stuff like that too. So you can see the amenities of the campsites and campgrounds. Do they have electric hookups? Do they have pit toilets or running water toilets or what have you? So that's always nice too. And actually, that kind of leads to something else. Like, depending on where I'm going, the nps.gov app is really nice in terms of understanding the amenities in the parks. And, of course, you can reserve campground sites there and everything. Another thing I'll do is, like, the location I go to in Oklahoma regularly, it's in a state park. So, again, state park app is where I can book it, but also you can see photos of the campsites and everything like that. So don't forget about those bigger tools or, whatever you want to call them. I can't think of the terminology that would make sense, but you all hopefully know what I mean. Let's see here. Oh, anything else from a camping or hiking, tracking standpoint you can think of?
If a really off-the-wall one, less camping but more travel, is the Love's Truck Stop app. To see where that's at.
I've got that too, man. I love Love's.
I like to stop at the truck stops. I find everything is cleaner. There's a little more stuff there. It's usually easy to get off and on the freeway type situation. So I do have the Love's app. I think I have the Pilot one too, but I tend towards Love's Truck Stops, and then I can just toss that. If I'm driving, like, where's the next one going to be? I can pull it up on the app and see, okay, I got another 60 miles to go, and I should stop at that one. So, like I said, off-the-wall one, but that I do.
No, that's a good one, though, because actually also for somebody like me that's making these big road trips just to get pretty much anywhere, granted, Love's isn't everywhere, but they at least cover a good portion of most of my trips. As a member, you also get 10 cents off per gallon.
Yep.
So
I've got that too.
Win-win. They're not top-tier gas, which that's a whole other conversation. But for a road trip, they're fine. You're not going to find top-tier gas many places.
Glad that I thought I was the only one that looked for top-tier gas.
No, man.
That's funny.
I only fill up locally. I try to fill up only with top-tier gas. But
same
we
here.
are way on a tangent.
That's another episode, folks.
Right.
The pros and cons.
Another great thing about Loves and the app is they've got dog parks.
Yes.
So if I'm taking the pups with me, I guess this ties into camping too. If you're taking your four-legged companion with you, Loves, a lot of them, if not most of them now, have fenced-in dog park areas, and you can actually filter your Loves locations in the app by whether they've got a dog park or not. So that's really nice too. We use it a lot for family trips, but it can come in handy too if I'm taking one of the pups on a camping trip. Let's see. Infield tools and extras. I didn't have a whole lot here. Weather apps, I guess we can talk about. Like, I'm really basic when it comes to weather. It's Weather Channel, the Apple Weather, Windy I use. But again, it's more so kind of get a feel for, like in Colorado, again, is the most recent example. What's the forecast in terms of afternoon storms building up, or maybe will we get some rain or wind that'll clear smoke out? But since I'm not someone that's really chasing sunrises or sunsets, I don't use it a whole lot for that. Yep. Occasionally, I'm not going to say I don't. I think you're a little more, you use Windy more than I do. I can never remember how to use Windy. I like it, but I can never remember how to use it.
Yeah, I'm a weather app addict. We talked about it in the Smokies. At this point in time, I'm not even sure why it bothers. And even for my New River Gorge trip, the weather apps, none of them were being very accurate to predict. And so I try not to be a slave to it, but it's always good to be aware. So I won't list all the weather apps I have on my phone because that would be embarrassing. You
can put them in the show notes.
Right? I can put them in the show notes. I use Windy more from a planning, trying to get a feel for, like, if I'm looking for that sunset, what's the cloud level look like it's going to be if I'm looking for fog. I tend to be Windy for that type of situation. Beyond that,
let's touch on the piece with Windy and the fog specifically, so you can kind of look at a combination of the dew point and the temperature and barometric pressure and get an idea, and wind all in one view, and get an idea of what are the odds of gaining some fog. Usually, if your temperature and dew point are within a few degrees,
if they're within a couple degrees
low wind,
of each other,
you've got a decent chance of fog.
Decent shot. I've found using Windy, I can get foggy mornings that the Weather Service didn't necessarily issue a advisory for or something, or even predict the day before. If I watch that dew point temperature at that early morning hour, I've found it to be pretty good at spotting that before some Weather Service is saying, "Oh, watch on your commute tomorrow morning." So that's one of my big uses of Windy, is to see that. And they have a chart that'll sort of make it super easy to see. There's a little graph, like you can see if that graph is really narrow, your fog chance is higher than it would be if they're far apart.
They do have a fog layer on the map view, but I have found it not to be terribly useful. I find looking at that dew point and temperature point is a little bit more reliable. What else you got from a weather standpoint? I know you were...
So probably my big ones is Wonderground. I use them still. They used to be awesome, but they got bought out by Weather Channel. But Wonderground used to be used by aviation folks, like just the private aviators and things like that, because it was so detailed. It's still pretty good. Weather Channel hasn't completely ruined them, but I'll use it. And then I've stopped using Apple Weather because, at least in my regional area, and it's one thing, it varies. Apple Weather probably works great in some. For some reason, Apple Weather got to be terrible here in my spot. So I actually switched to an app called Carrot, and I pay for it. Yeah, I pay for it, and it's very accurate. And part of what I like about it is it has all the fancy widgets, so it gives me all the niceties to have. So it's sort of my weather at a glance, quick planning app. When I start doing more planning, I dig more into Wonderground or Windy. But the other thing I really like about Carrot is I can switch which model it's using behind the scenes. So normally there's a service called Foreca, for Foreca, which is supposed to be generally accurate. But in my particular area, I found AccuWeather is the more reliable source. So I can switch it to use that. If Apple Weather was being better for me, I can switch it to use Apple Weather models, and it'll use those models. And there's like 4 others on here, including NOAA. So in West Virginia, I found Foreca to be a little more accurate. So I would switch my source to that. But it gives me all the same UI for seeing everything. So everything is muscle memory, but I can tweak the source based on it. So it's, like I said, it's sort of my fast, easy, see what things look like app. And I'll quit blabbering about weather apps. Just use what's easiest and most friendly to you, or which you find most accurate. But those are probably my 2 big ones that I use the most.
Well, and I think that carrot one's interesting because the main reason I jump between Windy and Weather Channel and Apple Weather is, to your point, like they all tend to be different and sometimes can be significantly different. Yep. One time I can check the forecast, like even here at home in Texas, and Apple Weather ends up being more accurate, but then other times Weather Channel is more accurate. Unfortunately, you don't know until it's done and over with.
Right.
Especially like with storms and that. And the challenge with any of these weather apps is if you're in the mountains, oftentimes your forecast is going to be pulled from the nearest town. So like if I'm camping near Silverton, it's going to be giving me the forecast for Silverton, but I'm 3 miles away and up an extra 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet. And especially that mountain climate, you could end up with totally different weather systems rolling through depending on how they interact with the peaks and everything. So it's partly why I just kind of look at these apps to get a gauge. And even in Utah, where I'm at, a lot of it's not tall mountain peaks, but it's still remote. So maybe I'm getting the forecast for a town that's 10 miles away or 15 miles away. It's going to give me some idea, but not necessarily an accurate idea. I do oftentimes, I'll pull up the predictive radar for precipitation, especially in Utah, where if you're off-road, that Utah mud is vicious. It's not like Eastern mud. It basically turns into like ice, wet ice, however you want to frame it. But so I'm really cautious in Utah about watching for rain. And certainly if I'm going to be hiking in a narrower canyon or anything like that, you don't want to be going into a situation like that without having an idea of the weather. And then push come to shove, and we talked about this in, I think that bonus episode we recorded after our trips, the Garmin satellite as well. You can pull down weather. I need to do some research there because I mentioned in the bonus episode, like it'll show you, oh, the forecast is for 50 feet away, but I'm assuming it's not really that granular on a location basis. Maybe that's where I was standing when I requested it, or the signal went through. I don't know. But it at least gets you something. It's not going to give you, well, and again, maybe the Garmin Explorer app will give you the map layers. I don't know. But the Messenger app certainly doesn't. It just gives you a text-based forecast. But I use that quite a bit in Colorado. And again, at least gives you an idea of what might be happening, factoring that there's some degree of unpredictability depending on the terrain you're in and everything. So whether do you use, well, you're not really doing much astrophotography or anything either. I used to use some light pollution. I can't remember what app. It wasn't Photo Pills. It was something I want to say got bought out by Apple.
Oh, Dark Sky?
They killed it. Maybe it was Dark Sky. Yeah.
There used to be Dark Sky. They used to be super good.
Yeah, that was nice for being able to get a feel for where your light pollution would probably be better or worse. Astro-specific these days, again, if I was doing something, it would just be Photo Pills. I'm usually not going to be messing with Astro unless I'm in a dark area anyways, so the light pollution map for me isn't as important. But if you're somebody that's chasing the Milky Way and everything, then you might want to look for something that's got a light pollution layer. I'll throw that out to our Patreon listeners. Again, free or paid. If you've got a light pollution app that you're using these days, that's good. Dark Sky is the last one I was familiar with, so I'm sure there's something else out there these days. But otherwise, Photo Pills is great. And the nice thing with Photo Pills for Astro is it'll give you, you can put in your exact camera, your exact lens, and it'll give you the different calculations for how long of an exposure can you do before you start getting trailing on your stars. Or if you want star trails, it can help you figure out the calculations for, oh, well, I just want like part of the arc for the star trails, or I want to get the full circle. How many exposures, how long of a single exposure you would need to be able to pull that off. So Photo Pills is really, really nice in that regard. The only other one I can think of that's a little off the wall in terms of like odds and ends extras would be the Red Cross app, since I went through the first aid certification. And I think anybody can download the app and access the instructions, but it gives you guidance on what to do. And I believe it's all offline access. So if you've got a bleeding wound, it'll walk you through the steps. You need to perform CPR on somebody. It'll walk you through the beat and rhythm and how to place your hand and mouth and everything. Same thing if you're in a position where you need to use an artificial defibrillator, it'll walk you through that. Of course, the intent is that you're certified and know how to use that, but do what you may. So yeah, the Red Cross one is definitely one I keep on the phone just in case, whether I'm by myself or with somebody else. I think that pretty well sums it up. Anything else that you use regularly that we may not be thinking of?
Red Cross app I have on my phone. I've been trying to find a good wilderness. I did a little bit of research on like a wilderness first aid, the one that was a little more geared towards being outside when, you don't have access to certain things. And there's a couple of pay for options, but it didn't get to the point where I researched them enough to be like, yep, I'll pay for this one because it's worthwhile. But I've been looking for a good app. So again, like Michael's been saying, if you got a good app you use for that, that's like the basic first aid on steroids with an emphasis on wilderness stuff. I'd love to hear about it, what I should be looking at, because I think that'd be useful to have on the phone in a moment when you're like, what should I be doing? You could pull it in the app and help get some initial guidance on it. So
yeah, and I'm trying to find look at that, I actually have the Dirt app installed. Peak. So going back to the Mountain Peaks one, there's Peak Finder and Peak Visor. I forgot, I have two different ones. Overlander's got an app. I'm trying to find the one Sarah Marino recommended it for identifying plants, and I know I downloaded it.
That's great apps. Seek,
and I think you've got one, don't you?
Yep, Seek is what I use for the plants, and you can do animals, I think. But yeah, Seek I use all the time. That's actually a good one. Pick that one up from Sarah Marino for when I'm out and want to identify something. So I use Seek all the time. And then I also use Merlin for the birds. It listens to the birds and it'll tell you what kind of birds are nearby, which can be pretty interesting to see, to hear, to see, because it'll listen on the mic and then, I've got 6 different bird species near me. So those are the two. I do use both those a fair amount, actually. Yeah.
And something else I will throw out as I'm struggling to find the plant identification app that Sarah recommended is Organize Your Damn Apps, because I can't find anything right now. I know the ones that I use regularly, I've got them all in a folder, but kind of those more less used or oddball ones, obviously I don't have organized, so I can't find it. But Sarah, if you're listening to this,
because she used to recommend Seek, I think, but then there's a ad now on Seek that dive deeper with iNaturalist, and I think they upgraded or did something different. I have not done the iNaturalist bit because Seek seems to work with my knowledge, but Seek does great at
Sarah,
identifying
I know
plants.
You're probably listening to this, so drop a comment on Patreon, please, and let us know what you're using these days, or anybody else, as we've said a million times. Got anything else? I've got one that I'll talk to that I don't use anymore, but
no, I think that's it, really, unless you jog my memory with what.
No, the only other thing I would say is there's, over my early years of photography, again, when I was chasing sunrises and sunsets, I was constantly trying different, it was a mixture of websites and apps that were the sunrise and sunset predictive apps. Like, you're likely to get great color or, whatever. I always found them to be horribly inaccurate and not very good at predicting the actual quality of sunrise and sunset at all. So again, if I am trying to predict that, I tend to look at Windy's really good again for giving you the different cloud layers and the altitude of the clouds, which can help you gauge
low, middle, and high.
If you're going to have clouds on the horizon that are going to block the sun, you can get a feel for that. If you're going to have high, thin clouds that the sun might come up from underneath and light them up, you can get a feel for that. But I personally, and I don't know if you ever used any of them, Jeffrey, but those predictive apps for sunrise and sunsets, I used to know people that would swear by those, and they would dictate when they would go out and not go out and everything. Every time I would use one, it seemed like it was wrong. So it didn't take me real long to ditch those. But if it's something you're looking at, I know some of those are paid too. Like, I would maybe be a little cautious of, not that it's a huge amount of money, but still, if it's a few bucks, like I'd be a little cautious of throwing down money for something like that.
Yeah, I'm same. I used to use them, used to have them, but these days I just embrace I'm either going out tonight to go photograph something or I'm not, and the dice are gonna happen. Like you said,
Right.
if I'm really, like if I'm trying to decide, if I know I'm going out tonight and I sort of have a choice of one location versus another, and one of them might be more of a sunrise, sunset location, that's when I'd probably pop open Windy, get an idea of what the clouds look like, how far off the horizon, what height, and then be like, oh, it's gonna be completely overcast, I'll go this location, or oh, there's some promise. But again, we've talked about process before. It's you're still rolling the dice with the weather apps these days. But yeah, so I don't really use any of the predictors, because I agree with you. I very rarely were they accurate. So
yeah, and then I guess the last thing to wrap up would be kind of checklist or anything. Like for me, I've gone a couple different routes. I used to in Microsoft To Do, I had a list of items in a to-do list basically that I would check off as terms of reminding me to pack or load into the truck or make sure I had in my camera bag or whatever. More recently, I've thrown everything into a Google Sheet, and kind of the same principle. Like I would just highlight every row, and then as I would pack it, I would remove the highlight and know that that item was accounted for. Anything you're using, obviously you could use something like a Google Task or Apple Reminders even. They're not the best, but there's, I would say whatever works for you, but there are ways to start building a list of items and things to account for when prepping.
I use an app called Todoist. Todoist. It's the one to-do tracking app that's stuck with me for years now, and so I run my life by it. So like today, there is a thing on my list that says record shutter nonsense. So I use it for a ton of stuff. Like it's
right.
Everything I'm supposed to remember to do today is on this list. But it has the ability to set up like projects and like templates. So I have like a packing list for regional travel when I'm doing the camping thing, and it'll I just open it up, uncheck anything that had been checked before, and that's what I go by. I've got one built for my camera gear. Super simple. I just go in. Yep, I got my Z7 II. I got my Z5 II. Check them off. And then if I'm flying, I have a different list for that type of travel when I'm flying. But all of that is in Todoist for me, just as a template. So I'm sort of abusing how Todoist works.
Same thing with me with either Google Sheets or the nice thing with Google Sheets, I can have everything on one list, but I've also got the items categorized so I can filter if I want to or anything like that. Microsoft To Do is just more of a basic checklist, probably similar to Todoist. And again, I would just go through and uncheck everything and then start checking it again. Trying to think. Let's see. This episode's due out mid-October on Patreon, so I will go ahead and tease a little project I'm working on. Jeffrey, I alluded to it at the end of our recording with Beverly. I don't think I've actually told you what I'm doing, have I?
I've been on the fringe of, I know sort of what you're up to.
Yeah, I think I've made anyways.
I'm on the fringe of knowing what you're up to, so.
I am attempting to build an app for photographers, really nature photographers, but I guess it would theoretically work for any type of photographer. But it's basically a photo shoot or photo trip planning and checklist app where, again, we're recording this August 1st, so 2.5 months later, I don't know where we'll really be at with it. I'm a little bit out of my depth, but yay AI, I guess. But anyways, I'm trying to get some feedback from folks in that in terms of what do you use today? What would you like? Trying to have different, where you can set up your own trip and then checklist specific for that trip and save them and have defaults and reset, duplicate, copy, all that stuff. So I'm working on that. I'm feeling confident I can pull it off. But anyways, I guess to throw it out too as a potential competitor to what I'm trying to do. If you have an app like that you use, let me know. I did some digging and I couldn't really find any apps specific to like photography, packing, or anything like that. So hopefully this hopefully this comes together as we sit here on August 1st, and as we put this out to the world in mid to late October, hopefully it came together or it's close to coming together. So we'll see where that's at. But
should be exciting. Should be cool.
Little thing I'm working on there, but I'm not going to plant my flag in the ground just yet and say, I'm absolutely going to have it. Who knows? So there's that too. I'm just right now I use things that are very basic, but I know the shortcomings of using just a standard to-do list or Google Sheet or what have you. So I'm trying to build something really for me that will hopefully help others from an app standpoint, and we'll go from there. So I'm trying to think of anything else we haven't touched on. I think we pretty much have. Like this wrap-up prompt that we have is like our winding down is the hidden app or tool that you love that more photographers should know about. I will throw it out, OnX. Like, I've been super happy with OnX Offroad. I've been building my pins into it for a while. You can plug in GPS coordinates, of course, so all my pins that I've got in Gaia or Google Maps. That was the other thing I used to do, is like I'd scatter them across different apps. I think I've even got pins on 2 different Google accounts. So I'm, again, working to consolidate all that, and I can import them into OnX. But because of the ability to set waypoints or pins, and you've got a graphical representation for the pins, so this is a campsite, this is a waterfall, this is a view, this is a nice tree, or whatever. You can set all that up and add notes to them. You can add photos to them. So I've actually found OnX Offroad to be really, really handy. I find myself using it more and more when I'm scouting, and then when I'm back in the field, actually wanting to go to those locations again. And so I'd say that's probably one that I feel like I don't see a lot of photographers talk about, and especially for folks kind of tying into our car camping episode or just going out, whether you're car camping or not. You've got the benefit of, the main reason I initially downloaded it was for the off-road trails and knowing, is this a trail I'm comfortable with / can do? So that's obviously huge. If you don't have something like a 4Runner or a Jeep or a Bronco, you can get a feel for, can I take my Corolla up this road? And, oh, no, it's got 8-inch obstacles. Nope, I shouldn't do that, kind of thing. But beyond that, what I've been surprised by is how useful it has been for all those other aspects, too, in terms of tracking locations and pins and stuff. So I would throw that out. Anything you've got that you think a lot of photographers don't really consider or use that you've found to be valuable?
I'm going to go with my weather app, Carrot. I think Windy is awesome, and I think if you really want to dive into in-depth weather complexity with a bazillion options, Windy is great, but there's a learning curve to it, and I find Carrot is just super handy for weather at a glance. Easily look at different locations. You can save locations under your favorites. Being able to switch that weather model really helps make sure it's as accurate as it can be for the area you're in. Granted, it takes a little bit of learning which is accurate, but it doesn't take too long to figure that out. And it's handy both on a trip in a new location and just around home when you're not even out doing photography. Just, I want to go for a walk in the neighborhood. What's the precipitation? It's very friendly on how quickly and easily you can get to the information. So, I'll go with a weather app just since I have a proliferation of them, and recommend checking out Carrot to see what you think of it. It's got the widgets, so on my home screen, it sits right there with everything. So it's pretty handy.
Now, I've heard of Carrot in the past. I totally forgot about it, though, so good call out. So, again, we'll have links to all of these. Most of them probably have a single link. Then you can go with the app specific to your operating system, whether it's Apple or Android. We've got a couple other links we'll throw in the show notes as well for things we talked about. Otherwise, I don't know, you got anything else, Jeffrey?
Nope, that's it. I think it was a good discussion.
I caught you taking a drink.
Yeah. No, good discussion.
All right. So, again, to Ben Horn, Matt Payne, and Greg Vaughn, thank you so much for your recent pledges on a monthly basis. We've also seen an influx of free followers on Patreon, which is great. We've had some really great discussions. Again, timeline-wise, this is coming out in October, but the car camping episode was the last one that just released, and that's been like our most discussed episode, surprisingly enough. So we've had some really good conversations there. So definitely please join us over on the Patreon. It's been a lot of fun, and we've had some good chats and information shared already. So otherwise, again, check the show notes for links on all these apps. And until next time, let's see if I can get the outro right, because I keep screwing it up. Until next time, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and take care. I almost screwed it up, but I got myself.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.